Namo Namaha Bhavtam Sarvesham Bhartam Swagatam. Welcome back to the channel Sanskrit Sopanam. I hope you are doing great. I'm also good. And moving forward in our Bhagavad Gita series, today we will be covering the 38th shloka from the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And this particular shloka also marks a shift in the narration by Krishna. Because so far, what we were seeing in all the previous shlokas, that he was giving all sorts of arguments, all sorts of materialistic reasons to persuade Arjuna to pick up his weapon and to fight this war. And now that in the last shloka we saw that Krishna ends his statement by saying that Tasmat Uttishta Kaunteya Yuddhaya Krita Nischayah, that be determined, make a resolve to fight this war and get up, get prepared. So he has already given enough arguments to Arjuna and persuaded him to fight this war. From this point, from this shloka onwards, he is now going to tell Arjuna how, with what attitude he should fight this war. So far he has convinced him about for doing the action. And now from this shloka onwards, he is going to dive into the philosophy of what should be the attitude behind any action. So a part of what forms karma yoga, right? The path of action. So again, from this shloka, there is a shift in narration of Krishna that we will see. What is it? What is the shloka and what we can learn from Sanskrit point of view? All this we will cover in this video. So without wasting any more time, let's quickly dive in today's video. Okay, so on the screen, you can see the 38th shloka. Let me go through the shloka once. Sukha dukhe same kritva labha labhao jaya jayao tato yuddhaya yujyasva naivam papamavapsyasi. Okay, so we have the shloka here, and this is of course the Sandhi Vichcheda of the same shloka. So as for what Sandhis we can spot in the shloka, so you see this pada, labha labhao, and similarly you see another pada also, jaya jayao. So both of these padas are a samasa. They are a compound word, and in these samasas you have two padas, two individual padas. So you have labha and you have alabha. And when they combine, so here you can spot a dirgha sandhi. So labha alabha joining together as labha labha. In that sense, same thing you can spot here. You have jaya and ajaya. When they combine, so it becomes jaya jaya. Okay, so both of them have the dirgha sandhi happening. And then if you come to the second line, so you see these pada, tato yuddhaya. So here also we see we have two individual padas, tataha and yuddhaya. And tataha changing into tato. Why? This is the ukara sandhi, utva sandhi, due to which this tataha is changing into this tato. And then if we move on, so we see this pada naivam, and naivam is na and evam. And here what sandhi is happening? So it is the vriddhi sandhi, due to which na evam, this is combining as naivam. A is changing into I, that is the vriddhi sandhi. Okay, so these are all the sandhis that are happening here. Lastly, papam avapsyasi. So again, it is not a sandhi. This is just two words combining together as they do in Sanskrit. Papam avapsyasi. But all the sandhis that were happening, we already covered here. And if you want to dive deeper into these sandhi rules, so you of course have the PDF sheet of this entire shloka where we decode all the words grammatically. So you have this PDF sheet that you can download from the link in the description box. And there you will also find another sheet that is Ashtadhyayi Sandhi Sutra list. That if you want to see what are the Ashtadhyayi Sutras behind all these sandhis that we see, that we cover, so you can find that sheet also there. But anyways, now let's move on and see the decoding of the shloka. Okay, so we are starting our shloka with this Kriya Pada Yujyasva. And this Kriya Pada is coming from the dhatu Yuj dhatu, that means to focus, to concentrate, or to prepare, basically to get ready for something, to prepare yourself for something in that sense. And also notice one thing, this Yuj dhatu is not the same from which we get the word yoga. That Yuj dhatu, even though the spelling is same, but that Yuj dhatu is another dhatu in the dhatu partha, and that dhatu means to unite. Okay, that is why the word yoga means the union. So that is another Yuj dhatu. This is another Yuj dhatu, that means to focus, to concentrate. And this dhatu is in lot lakara, that is the imperative mood. Madhyama Purush, because the speaker is directly addressing the listener. So that is Madhyama Purush, and Ekvachanam because of course Arjuna being the listener, that is one person. So Yuj dhatu in these three properties becomes Yujyasva, and that means you must focus, you must get ready. See, we are using imperative mood, and imperative mood is used in the sense of a request or a command or an order. And Krishna being his mentor at this point, so he is kind of giving that command to Arjuna that you must focus, you must get ready. Okay, and if we'll move on, so immediately a question will be Kasmai Yujyasva, that get ready for what? And the response is Yuddhaya Yujyasva, that get ready for the Yuddha, for the battle. So yuddhaya, of course, coming from this pratipadika yuddha, that means battle. And since I want to say for the battle, get ready for the battle, so of course I'm using the fourth case, chaturthi vibhakti and ekvachanam roop. So yuddha changes into yuddhaya. That is what you see in the shloka. Okay, so far so clear. Now if we'll move on, so we have another question, that is kim kritva. That you prepare yourself, get ready for the battle, but having done what? Because there is something that Krishna wants Arjuna to do prior to engaging himself in the battle. And that is this thing, that same kritva yuddhaya yujjasva. So this kritva, we of course know this comes from kri dhatu, that means to do, modified using twa pratyay. So we get this kridanta kritva. But notice this thing, that even though the common meaning of this kri dhatu is to do, to perform an action, but the way it can be interpreted in the words depends on the context. So basically what I'm saying is this kritva, even though it essentially means after doing, but this doing, this word can be better replaced with another word based on the context. So after making, after creating, after treating, in any way we can use this kritva. And here within the context of the shloka, this kritva is translated as having made. So having made, having treated, all these versions are fine. And when we decode the shloka further, you will see this point. Okay, so kritva, having treated or having made, and same kritva. This same, this comes from the pratipadika sama. And sama, this is an adjective that basically means equal. Or this sama can also imply treating two things as essentially the same things. So this same kritva means having made them the same or having treated them the same. What are these them? We will decode further in the shloka, but this is what is same kritva, having treated them or having made them the same in that sense. And why is this pratipadika sama taking the form same? So I'll come back to it. Let me first decode another line also, so it will make more sense. So now I'm asking this question, that ke same kritva, that having made them the same, what are these them? What are these two things that you are treating them as equal? Ke same kritva. So the response is sukha dukkhe same kritva, where this sukha, this means happiness or this means pleasure, and dukkha, this means sorrow or pain. And now I can mention these two things separately also, that I can say sukham cha dukkham cha, right? That happiness and sorrow, pleasure and pain. So sukham cha dukkham cha. Or I can also take these two words and combine them into a samasa. So I get this samastapada samasa sukha dukkha. And now I am saying that having made happiness and sorrow the same. So here this sukha dukkha, this is the object, this is the karma of this kridanta, right? So this of course is in dvitiya vibhakti, second word case. And this is here in dual mode. This is here in dvivachanam. Why? Because we have two things in this samastapada, in this samasa, that is sukha and dukkha. So second word case dvitiya vibhakti, why? Because this is the karma of this kridanta kritva. And dual mode, why? Because this is expressing two things, sukha and dukkha. And now what about the gender? That what gender should I use here to create a form, to create a vibhakti form? So this samastapada, this samasa takes the gender of the last pada, dukkha. Dukkha, this is a neuter gender word in Sanskrit. So since this is a neuter gender word in Sanskrit, so this entire samastapada, the gender what we will take is the neuter gender, napumsaklinga form. So basically sukha dukkha, this samasa in napumsaklinga, dvitiya vibhakti, dvivachanam becomes sukha dukkhe. Just as any neuter gender word becomes, right? Phalam phale. Okay, so I hope this sukha dukkhe, this is clear. And now this same, because what we are saying is having made both happiness and sorrow the same. So this same is kind of qualifying. It is like a complement to this namapada, right? So since this sama is qualifying this sukha dukkha, so this is also taking the same form. So this is also taking the dvitiya vibhakti dvivachanam form, sama changing into same. So that is how we are getting these two words, sukha dukkhe same kritva, that having made both happiness and sorrow the same, or having treated both happiness and sorrow alike. That is what we mean by this statement. So I hope this statement and these words, they are plenty clear. And if we'll move on, so I am basically repeating this question, that punaschikau, that what else? Because there are two more pairs of opposites that Krishna is telling in the shloka. So see, this labha labha, this samastpada has these two padas, labha and alabha. Labha, this of course means gain. And alabha, this is just the negation, the opposite of the same word gain. So this becomes loss. Similarly, jaya, this means victory, and ajaya, this means defeat. Okay, so we have these two pairs of opposites, and when I combine lab and alab into a samasa, So of course, labha alabha, this combines as labha labha. A dirgha sandhi happens between these two. I get this samast pada labha labha. Similarly, when I combine jaya and ajaya into a samasa, so I get this samast pada jaya jaya. Same dirgha sandhi happens jaya jaya. So these two, labha labha, jaya jaya, these two are also the karma of this same kridanta kritva, that having treated all of these pairs of opposites alike. That is what we are trying to say. So both these samasas, just like sukha dukkha, are the karma of this kridanta. So they are also in Dvitiya Vibhakti, and just as we saw, they are also in dual mode, Dvivachanam, because they are expressing two things each, Labh Alabh, Jaya Ajaya. Okay, and what about the gender of this Samastapada? So just as we saw in the previous example, the gender is the same as the gender of this last pada in the samasa. So this alabha, this is of course derived from this labha. So this alabha, this is the masculine gender word. This is a pullinga word. Similarly, this ajaya, this is also a masculine gender, pulling gender word. So for both this samastapada, the gender is the masculine gender, the pullinga gender. So now we know we have this form, that Dvitiya Vibhakti Dvivachanam in Pullinga. So Labha Labha becomes Labha Labho, Jaya Jaya becomes Jaya Jayo, just as Rama, this becomes Ramo in Dvitiya Vibhakti Dvivachanam. Okay, so I hope this entire structure is clear, and I hope you get the point that why this is Sukha Dukkhe, because this is a neutral gender samasa, and why these are Labha Labho Jaya Jayo, because they are the masculine gender samasa. But all of them are Dvitiya Vibhakti Dvivachanam because they are the karma of this Kridanta Kritva. Okay, so I hope all these padas, they are clear. And see one more thing. This sama, even though it is only given for this Sukha Dukkha pair, but this sama is understood for both Labha Labha and Jaya Jaya. That having treated both happiness and sorrow alike, and in that same way, treating gain and loss and victory and defeat. So that this sama is implied for these two pairs of opposites also. Okay, so now let us see this entire structure so far. Sukha dukkhe labha labho jaya jayo same kritva tvam yuddhaya yujasva. Krishna is appealing to Arjuna that having made both happiness and sorrow, gain and loss, victory and defeat, having treated all these pairs of opposite as alike, as same, Tvam yuddhaya yujasva, you get ready for the battle, you prepare yourself for the battle. That is what Krishna is telling Arjuna. And now if we'll move on, so we have one more last thing, that is na avapsyasi. So here there is another kriya pada, avapsyasi. That means you will obtain, you will incur. But since there is a na preceding it, so the meaning is negated. You will not incur, you will not obtain. And this avapsyasi is coming from the dhatu ap dhatu. Ap dhatu also we have seen so many times before. Ap dhatu again means the same thing, to incur something, to obtain something in that sense. And the form is lid lakara, that is future tense, madhyama purush and ekvachanam, again same as yujvasva, because the agent of this action is same, Arjuna. So madhyama purush ekvachanam and lit lakara future tense. So ap dhatu in these properties becomes apsyasi. And here we can already spot a prefix, a upsarga, that is this ava. So we have this, along with this upsarga, we have this entire word avapsyasi. The meaning remains the same. That is what we are starting with. Of course, the question will be kim na avapsyasi, that what will you not obtain? And Krishna is telling Arjuna that papam na avapsyasi, that you will not incur sin. Papam. See, papam coming from papa. This shabda, this form is also the Dvitiya Vibhakti Ekvachanam form, because this is the karma of this kriya avapsyasi. And if we'll move on, so one last thing, that how will Arjuna not incur any sin? And to that Krishna responds, evam papam na avapsyasi. Evam, this is an indeclinable, this is an avya in Sanskrit, and evam means this way. Okay, this evam also means simply thus. So with this evam, basically Krishna is saying, evam karishyasi chet papam na avapsyasi. That if you will do, or if you will act this way, if you will act thus, so you will not incur any sin. And how to act, that is what he told previously in the shloka. That after treating both sukha dukkha, labha labha, jaya ajaya equally, having made all these opposites the same, when you will act this way, you will not incur any sin. Evam karishyasi chet papam na vapsyasi. That is what Krishna is telling Arjuna. Okay, so I hope the significance of this evam, this is clear. And now with this, let us see our anvaya along with the anuvada. So what we have here is sukha dukkhe labha labho jaya jayo cha same kritva. That having made happiness sorrow, that is sukha dukkha, gain and loss, that is labh alabha, and victory and defeat, that is jaya ajaya. Same kritva, that having made all these pairs of opposites the same, tataha yuddhaya yujasva. Now get ready for the battle. Tataha. This basically means thereafter. Tat paschat. So now Arjuna, get ready, yujyasva, for the battle. Yudhaya. And then Krishna also says, Evam papam na avapsyasi. That this way, that is acting thus, you will not incur sin. Okay, so that is the entire translation of the shloka. Okay, so having given enough reasons to Arjuna to persuade him to act, now Krishna is telling Arjuna that how he should act, what should be the attitude behind his actions. And through Arjuna, Krishna is appealing to all of us. This, and a lot of you will understand that this part of the verse, this part that we are coming in Bhagavad Gita, this is giving us the glimpse of Karma Yoga, the path of action. Okay, and the reason Karma Yoga is so universal is everyone in this world is a person of action. Okay, see, you may or may not have that emotional sensibility to pursue bhakti yoga, the devotional path, or you may or may not have the required consistency and the required commitment to pursue the Raj Yoga. That is the path of this meditation. Then you may or may not have the intellectual ability or the patience to pursue the path of knowledge, that is the Jnana Yoga. But each one of us have in us the ability to act in whatever way possible. And so this is very universal. The actions are very universal. See, the greatest of atheists will deny the existence of God only because he will give this as an argument that I work for myself, I work for my family, I work for the society, and I don't need to have a God to rely upon. So that can be the argument. That is the argument that is given by the atheist. So that is what I'm hinting at. That even the atheist will tell you this thing, that they are the person of actions. Okay, so action is very universal. That is why this path, Karma Yoga, is so universal. Each one of us at any stage in our life can relate to this path. And this is what Krishna is now giving us a glimpse. From this verse onwards, he is giving us a glimpse. This opening verse is probably the most important aspect of this entire Karma Yoga. And that is to act with an equanimous mind, with a samatva, with this attitude of equanimity. It is just treating both the happiness and sorrow alike. It is just treating both the victories and the defeat alike. See, these three pairs of opposites. In Sanskrit, we have this word dvandva for the pairs of opposites. Why these three pairs? Because if we think about it, these three pairs of opposites relate to us at three different levels. When we talk about victory and defeat, Jaya and Ajaya, so we are talking at the physical level. Then when we talk about Labha and Alabha, the gain and the loss, so we are talking about at the mental level, that in our mental level we feel the great joy when we get something, when we gain something, and we feel great sense of dread when we have to part ways from something, when we lose something. So in that mental level, that agitation is created by this labha and alabha. And then lastly we have sukha dukha, that are even broader terms, that is happiness and sorrow, that we conceptualize at our intellectual level. So all these three pairs of opposites, they relate to us at three different levels: the intellectual level, the mental level, and the physical level. And that is what Krishna is saying, that at all these three levels, human beings are composed of these three multiple personalities. At all these three levels, we have to treat all the pairs of opposites as equal. We have to treat them alike. And then only we can act for the sake of action. Then only our actions can be inspired, because only when our actions are supported by an inspiration that is beyond our own egoistic desires, then only the outcome have a sense of that divine perfection in it. From this verse onwards, Krishna is telling us how to act, what should be the correct attitude behind our actions. Very great, very important part this is, because all of us can relate to this. So if you have any commentary of Bhagavad Gita with you, please read the commentaries along with these videos. These videos cover all the Sanskrit aspects, the letters, the words, the grammar and all. And a bit of chatting that we do here, I also try to convey what I am able to understand from these commentaries and all. But please, from your end also, read follow along these Gita verses with some good commentaries on them so that you can apply these philosophies in your own day-to-day life. But anyways, that was it. I'll meet you now with another video, with another shloka. Until then, stay awesome, stay happy, keep learning Sanskrit. Vayam punha milamaha. Dhanyavad.